2.0. Thank you for inviting me. And knowing that perhaps I'm one of the accountability partners, not just for the fact that how many years have I been staying in Abuja? Perhaps about 18 years or so when I relocated from Lagos. Thank you also to our standing team, because it takes a village to do something like this. Thank you very much, ma'am. And yes, thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege and an honor, and of course, a duty for me to moderate this first panel titled Agribusiness and Food Security from Farm to Market, Scaling Agribusiness in Emerging Urban Centers. This, of course, will not be more timely, and I also see this panel as one of the most consequential sessions people will have during the course of this expo. When I was going through this, just like Nancy said, I just came back from Washington, D.C., there from all back meetings. So I hope I'm not too exhausted or rusty, but trust me, this is my beat. So even if you wake me up in my pajamas, I will deliver as always. So let's do this. This session, when I was thinking through it starts at the intersection of policy, productivity, and purpose. We all got to take a tea break. Now, where's the tea break? Nourish our thousands, Bobby told me to coffee. I tried to get something into my tummy, and see Joker Silva told me, have you taken something? I have to take something because we don't need to nourish our body. And what is that? It's about food. Where does food come from? From the farmers. Where do we get food from? From the market, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So across Nigeria, across the continent, what I've also noticed is that the food conversation is changing. I remember some years ago when Dr. Nnaji was the president of African Development, and we had a session, they talked about food systems changing. And it has actually changed, and it's still changing. It's no longer about just growing enough, it's about how food moves, it's about how value is captured, and it's about how innovation turns agriculture into enterprise. As our cities expand, and Abuja is one city that has really expanded, and it expanded before me. I know a lot of people have been here before me, even in Abuja. They are not just, Abuja, for example, is not just an end market anymore. They are really becoming the heartbeats of new agricultural economies. That's what I call them. Abuja and some other cities that need to tap into it. From processing to logistics, from cold chain to capital markets, urban centers now drive the transformation of food systems. So this afternoon, I'll be asking very important questions, but key question will be, how do we take agribusiness from subsistence to scale, from the smallholder field to supermarket shelves, while building resilience and inclusivity along the way? And I like what Ambassador always does. Women are always at the center of what she does. And I really particularly said that inclusivity because women really found a lot of the food that we eat. So we will explore everything on this planet, from policy frameworks, finance, technology, to women's participation, and most importantly, the role of private-public partnership in shaping agribusiness growth. Our panelists have been introduced. I don't need to introduce you anymore, but perhaps in the course of our conversation, our audience will definitely know why we are here. Let me start from the CEO of Affects. And I welcome to the panel. Affects has built one of Africa's strongest commodity trading systems, and that is why he's here. So I think that how scalable is commodity-backed financing model in a largely informal agricultural market? I remember when you guys started. Yes, I remember. Former CEO. So can you talk to us with that experience and background, how scalable it is?
Thank you, Nancy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think what we are having the Abuja Investment Company Limited is a great one. It's timely, and I think we would love to see more of these things happening. How scalable is it? I think the key word I got from what you said is informal. It's currently an informal market. I know when you look at markets that are informal, the opportunity lies in you bringing it into light, making it formal, and then being able to build more structures around. And I think that's a key thing for me. The way we see agriculture in Nigeria today is highly informal, which gives a lot of opportunity for investment, growth, and scale in that ecosystem. My numbers may not be accurate, depending on the source you're looking at. I think the number we show up is about 70% of the world income which are farmers in Nigeria. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a huge number that we have there. And most of these are in the informal economy, meaning they don't have access to capital, they don't have access to finance, and then getting to the market is a huge challenge for them. Which is what lots of us, in my business, that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. How do you create a market where you can get producers to sellers without reducing the value you get? Create that first layer, and secondly, you can now unlock capital for them. When you look at the mission we're driving the country over the next couple of years, $1 trillion economy, majority, the class that drives the majority of the working force cannot be left behind there, right? So meaning, whether we like it or not, there's a need for huge investment in the agricultural ecosystem, and upsides are there, right? And when you look at lots of gaps that are also present in that informal markets, here amongst this is absence of key infrastructure. Storage facilities in Nigeria that reduces postal sourcing, that ensures that we can preserve quality food for a far longer period and missing significantly. And that gives an opportunity for huge investments coming to that ecosystem. To give an idea of the gap we're talking about, when you look at developed countries, there's this ratio we talk about called absorptive capacity, meaning what you produce as a country and what part of that can you store at any given point in time. So, for example, if you produce 20 million metric tons of commodity, and you can store just 1 million metric tons, that means your absorptive capacity of that's like what, 5%? And that's the ratio where Nigeria is right now, about 5%. When other countries are closer to 80, 100, even countries like China are over 100% valuation, right? So there's a huge gap in that ecosystem. And more importantly, this is also an economy that is currently working at 60% of capacity.
Okay, I think for just 30 seconds, because I want to short, straight to the point so that we can cover it up. I think that we're talking about Abuja, we're all here in Abuja, this summit, this expo, is really to sell Abuja as an investment hub. As someone that has done this, do you think that Abuja has the potential to be an agribusiness hub?
I don't doubt that. And again, it's
you don't doubt that,
I don't doubt that Abuja could be.
Okay.
But let me repeat this. Abuja needs to be, Abuja could be, by putting the right structure in place. Infrastructure is the key one. And then the capacity to attract businesses that stays in that ecosystem. There are a lot of fintechs in the agricultural ecosystem that are building, and Abuja is a perfect place for them to establish their businesses and run their business around that.
Okay, so Dr. Modi, let me continue now. Because your work in the SCC agro-industrial zone sits at the heart of today's conversation. I think I just said that we need infrastructure in place. One progress has been made in positioning Abuja as an agribusiness hub. The minister, of course, we heard from the Minister of State earlier, a lot has been done in terms of infrastructure. How can we strengthen infrastructure? Not just infrastructure, not just about roads, because we need roads, for our linkages. But in terms of processing, in terms of logistics, that I think you can get these guys, cold storage, to curb post-harvest services. We talk about the absorptive capacity. So what are you doing concerning that? How is Abuja positioning itself as an agribusiness hub?
Thank you very much. First, I want to take us through some basics within the time period. Statistics has it that by 2025 and 2050, 70% of the world population will reside in urban areas. That means the population is growing, urbanization is, fast catching up with, every city. Now, if the kind of growth we expect is what we have, that means feeding the population, the expected population that will have moved to the urban centers because the problem, if nothing is done, concerning this. How do I mean? As population grows, urbanization takes place, more people move into the urban centers, there will be more demand for food, and food security will be a big challenge. How do I mean? If we cannot provide enough food at all times that has the right nutrients that will enable each and everyone to live a healthy and active life, then we are not talking about security. So how do we ensure that agribusiness is given the right push? FCT has really gone very far in ensuring that agribusiness is brought to the rural settings to provide opportunity for smallholder farmers to engage in practices that will improve their production and productivity, generate more income, improve their living standard. FCT SAPs is one of those efforts by the FCT administration to ensure that farmers don't just produce, but they are giving the needed support to ensure the add value to whatever they produce, so that they can get more income from these production activities, with the ultimate result of transforming the entire rural area. Now, the project is all about supporting farmers, particularly in the dairy and beef sector, to increase their production and also improve their productivity. Now, you agree with me that the majority of our farmers we have don't have what it takes, the right infrastructure to help them mitigate post-harvest losses. Record having that 40%, average 40% of production is lost to post-harvest losses, I mean, issues that has to do with storage, processing, and not whatnot.
Sorry, I just have to proceed. Okay. I'm trying to grasp what you're saying.
Right.
Can you, because there are a lot of, I also assume that there are investors in the room, and people are listening to us to get the needs of what they're discussing. Can you give me 2 examples as to how your FCT Agro-Industrial Zone is trying to create that progress which I asked earlier around processing, around some of those things? Because I'm getting the sense that you're talking to me about the challenges. This final is about desktop solution. So just quickly, give me 2 examples quickly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
What are you guys doing?
Yeah. FCT Agro-Industrial Zone is trying to establish the agro processing hub that will uptake production from rural farmers for processing. Now, where I was driving at, initially was okay for us to know that most farmers don't process. They only stop at production. Now, the project is about, helping these farmers to improve, their production and productivity, offtake whatever they produce, and process for both local and external markets. So currently that's what the project is doing. But the main value chain of focus is the being and the
Okay. So, I need there's clarity there. So if I have money, I can come into that. Because that's what I wanted to get. So beef and dairy, that's what we are concentrating on that. Okay, let me come over to coffee. My colleague, don't worry, you have the best thing that comes to you. Coffee, what do you see models? Let them come from that angle. What do you see models can make agribusiness more attractive to institutional investors and perhaps those of us in the room?
Hello? So, I want to answer two questions.
Okay.
I wanted to speak about FCDB as well.
Okay.
And also, so can I start with the
Yes,
FCDB?
you can.
So, I was just listening and I was speaking about the role of the SSG today. And I thought about the GCC, the Gulf Council. And the GCC, they buy over $100 billion worth of agricultural commodities every year and re-export 70%. Right? So they have become one of the major agro hubs in the world. A lot of production is happening. So you think of Abuja and where Abuja is located in Nigeria is right at the center of the main production belt of the country. So, in my view, SST can be a repository because already you have most of the, let me say, promising agriculture companies located in Asia is here, the likes of Somalia is here, several crop bank is here, and then you have the Nigerian commodity section. So I think that already is placed to be that. The question now is there some sort of a framework that allows all of these companies to plug into Abuja? Because the companies are here, they're operating on their own, Abuja is doing its own thing separately. So if there was some sort of a battle tactic, if you like, that allowed everybody knew what role they were playing, and Abuja as a repository, all these commodities come from the provinces and feed into Abuja. So anybody who's trying to get access knows that Abuja is a repository for all of the commodities. And what does that mean? What Abuja has to create, right? So then you start talking about the logistics company. They create a logistics vehicle that can work with these companies in that time, and then what do you have here? And then how do people plug into that process, right? But in my view, we can do it properly. So when you then say, I'm trying to get access to commodities in Nigeria, Lagos is an export. But for within Nigeria, I'm trying to get access to commodities. And all these companies kind of do a bit, if you like, maybe a bridge of between all the five. So that's my thoughts on that. Sorry, can you remind me of the actual question?
The question to you was the risky models, that can make agribusiness money. Retail or even institutional, for those of us in the room.
Okay, so when I think of, you listening to investors and I'm thinking of debt, and I'm thinking of the banks, right? And at the moment, our company, we're in conversations with finance institutions, National Agricultural Development Fund, and some of the retail banks for executing the warehouse receipt loan system. I know that Apex, you guys also work on that as well. And you find how hesitant some of these commercial and retail banks are to take on that risk. But the truth is that these commodities have a value, right? If a farmer is going to be accessing 50, 60, 70% of the value of their stored commodity, one of the companies, the collateral manager or warehousing company, or processing company, working with those partners, has guaranteed offtake. So So in that sense, the person providing the funding cannot do it, right? But it should not. And these are the sort of mechanisms you imagine, would work for the risk. So I'll make this clearer, an example. Farmer A has 1 million naira of commodity, right? Or let's say 10 million naira of commodity. They can get 77 million naira in credit using the 10 million worth of commodity as collateral, right? The credit is coming from an investor or a finance institution like that. And the question now is, who is holding that commodity? The likes of the infrastructure, maybe us. And we're guaranteed that when that term is due, the payment is not due, you can sell that commodity and still give you the interest, the principal and interest on top of it. So that way we're minimizing the risk because we have the infrastructure.
So what will be the role of the banks? Because I know that banks historically have not really, tried to finance agriculture. Some say they don't understand the business, even though they have agricultures.
They understand the business very well. I think the banks understand the business.
So why are they not giving financing?
I mean, agriculture is a long game. Yeah, it's a long
So you
game.
go back to what I said.
It's a long game, and I mean, there's some. I have thoughts on this that I don't want to share publicly here, because I think that we all know what we need to do. The banks can do it. The banks know who the buyers are. The off-takers of the same commodities have accounts with the banks, right? So if the bank is working with a company that works directly with farmers to produce, for example, soybean, the bank knows that flour mills is the major buyer of soybean, and they know the amount of money that's involved in that, right? They know that linkage. I think that it should not be that difficult for them to play in that space, but they're easier, faster, cheaper sources of returns within our system that makes it not attractive for them.
Exactly.
So that's a different story.
That's the difference. And I know all of us in the room here would agree with me. That the banks are not doing enough as they either go for short-term securities. I was saying the central bank trying to control them, but that's a different discussion for me today. But I like the aspects which you brought in, and I'm hoping that GMB will take note of this, as well as your staff. He said something very important. The NCX is there, which is Nigerian Commodity Exchange. The collateral registry, too, there's a Nigerian collateral registry that gives, if you bicycle, you can put your bicycle as a collateral, to get funding. And not many people know that. So perhaps in the next survey, I still want to talk about agriculture. I know that John is in the room and is listening to me. Mr. Tuche, who is the head of the NCX, of course, will bring that kind of experience. So thank you for bringing that. I just need that to bring that report. Now let me come to the other woman, beautiful lady on this panel. And women are central to Nigeria's agricultural workforce. Yes, we face systemic barriers. Some of those barriers, of course, we've mentioned here. How do we begin to close that gender gap in agribusiness participation? And from your own experience too, what proven models have helped women-led cooperatives scale sustainably?
Thank you. We think the results oriented.
Yes.
And I'm happy you asked for practical what's the way. So Nigerian women in agricultural business and in national government, just like you mentioned, Nigerian Commodity Exchange. We just had the final review of MOU to opposite agreement, nationwide opposite agreement for focus countries, 7 states. And unfortunately, Abuja is no one. But we have to push Abuja here. We're doing something to get Abuja here.
So GMD,
Please make Abuja work. We're not starting with Abuja. So that's my pilots. But I'm sure, where a woman leads, civilization is safe. I'm sure with Ambassador Abuja will be the first one. So what can we do? We all know the challenges. I'm not going to talk about the challenge. Wherever in an economy that is very fragmented, the economy will become weak. That's what happened to our women. Our women are fragmented, the lands are fragmented, They don't have the collateral. When you talk about the collateral of having land, our fathers are athletes, are real fathers. Women are not given the opportunity to have land to be able to get funding from the land. So what are we doing to get this served? So we bring these women into cooperatives because they use the power of strength to formalize their informal groups. We have such, if you pass through the, is it Kwali? You'll see the Apple women. I'm sure some of us stop by to get Apple from them. We're working to formalize them into cooperative society so that they no longer depend on tokenism, because that's what's been happening to our female farmers. So when we put them into these cooperative societies, group them into union, and then we get them affiliated to the national acres. Now, as a national acres, being a registered entity, business entity, we work up to, we don't go to commercial bank because they are not agri-friendly, their financial models are not farmer-centric, and sorry to say it, I don't think they understand the agricultural sector, because each crop, you have to look at the crop cycle of the crop, and the minimum a farmer needs loan for is 1 year moratorium, not even 6 months moratorium, and that 1 year is supposed to be for 12 months, 1 year moratorium principal, and then maybe you can take 6 months moratorium for the interest, so that the farmer can have 2 cycles, and that is for 2 cycles, not staple crops like cassava. So what are we doing with NCS? We have signed up an agreement to aggregate these women, because when we go out individually to get 2, we were talking about 7 million. Believe me, apart from the fee of us and the executive, none of my women have 7 million products. The highest they have been 200 or 500. So if they bring that product to you, a hectare of land for soya beans that you mentioned costs 1,258 million. So have 200,000 will not be that as collateral. So we reach out to brands, we discuss already with Nexi brand for those products that we get exported, and also we've gone advance also with Iiioh for those products that are exported. We also train women. We have various development partners like SWA Excellence, Pearl Mutual training us on financial literacy. Yes, what we're doing is quite small, and that's why we need Iiioh to help us to upscale. Now, the beautiful thing about those women is that they are dedicated when it comes to low pay. Women actually pay. We need an example. You know about Niger food. The Niger State government supported us through Niger food, and we're able to cultivate on 540 hectares of paddy. So if you go on Niger, we are not too much on the social media, but we're more on the farms. But if you go to Niger food website, you see my lab there carried out the farm cultivation. So with our ambassador here, there's one particular business. I wish our keystone speaker was here, which is tomatoes. Our women right now are using the agriculture, but that's not healthy for us when we talk about nutrition, security, and even environmental sanity. So we're looking at using freeze drying, which is the osmosis process of gas. You freeze dry the tomatoes within 21 hours, and you are going to have tomato powder that has 98% of the nutritional content, which is good, and the packaging is environmental friendly. So no one is doing that right now in Nigeria, and that's the business of that we should take quickly here in Abuja. So in the next 5-10 years, we won't say, we're thinking, that is the same in the Expo, and then now Jigawa is doing it. No, we're saying it here now. So you're an investor. Tomato powder, we should go away from paste. When you use, I've used it, I did it myself, so we're talking about practical. If I use it to cook stew and give to you, we know it's tomato powder. And rather than the whole chain of spending a lot of energy trying to preserve our fresh tomatoes, you're still going to have that fresh tomatoes when you cook, because it converts back to fresh when you use it to cook. And we can try to transfer with a big market. then we disseminate it to every one of us here. I think that's one business that AICL should look at, and they can partner with Iiioh to see how we can implement this within 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm liking this panel. I'm having money ideas right now, and business ideas. But let me come to you, Dr. Ellis. So take it from what the first said. How can Abuja, know that the Prime Minister said before you, how can Abuja with its policy assets? Because Abuja, is on its own. You can determine what he wants to do, the kind of forward-looking government that he has, with its policy assets and investor visibility, become a model for business competitiveness nationwide. I chose my words, not just my agribusiness alone, but even business competitiveness. And I would like you to also add this. How can Abuja, attract financing models into large-scale agricultural infrastructure, like Dr. Moni mentioned? They're talking big, they're talking dairy. How can they attract large-scale financing models, if I put it that way? Apart from what Buffy has said, because I see Buffy is looking at me,
Hello. Good. Thank you very much, Nancy, Buffy, and the other panelists. I have attentively listened to everybody on the panel, and of course, the questions are well served. It's vital for us to pivot on some of the specific issues that we know confront not only the agricultural sector, but the entire economy. Most African countries do not have access to financing. And if you don't have access to financing, you don't have financing opportunities, or you don't have the capacity to create it in terms of capital formation, then you must look outward. And how do you look outward? You go into foreign direct investment. How do you have access to foreign direct investment when we have to only depend on World Bank loans, the IMF arrangements, and the like? As a transcontinental capital and commodity market professional with about 43 years of experience, I dare say that partnerships and collaborations with seasoned platforms upon which we can access a distribution network on a global scale to have access to financing is the only way to go. Now, how do you have access to financing as a private platform devoid of the Nigerian perennial interest in accessing financing from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund mechanisms? We need to, on a long-term basis, have access to the global markets. How do we do that? We need to have Nigerians who are duly qualified to practice in this space on a global scale. And trust me, I've been in this business about 43 years. It's not easy to go cross-border to look for money to finance projects in any part of Africa or any part of the world because of the way the financial markets are configured. So at Scandinavian Company in New York, we have assessed the difficulties and challenges in Africa and have decided to have the capacity to go cross-border and be able to raise funds in dollar-denominated terms to finance projects, not only in Nigeria, but in all the African economies. Now, we are talking about long-term financing to drive national development for the long haul. In order to do that, we have a solution on this platform. The Abuja Investment Company Limited has the opportunity to collaborate and partner with Stellar Company Limited in New York in order to be able to have access to the global financial markets. Because to do that, you have to be able to practice in the UK, you have to be able to practice in Nigeria. I'm talking about the capital and commodity markets. And then you also have to practice in the United States of America. How do you get all these penetrating qualifications to do so? And these qualifications sometimes take 20, 30, 40 years to get. So at Stellar Company in New York, we solved that problem. We have the capacity to raise dollar-denominated securities to finance projects anywhere.
Okay, Doctor, sorry, let me come in here. What I hear you say, or perhaps I'm assuming that's what you mean, but like I mentioned earlier, this panel is a solutions delivery panel and new ideas panel. And I'm sure that's why we're all gathered here. Are there ways that perhaps agricultural bonds can be structured?
Yes.
You said we have like green bonds, the government structure bonds.
Yes.
So just give me that in like 30 seconds.
Yes. There is absolutely no financing need that cannot be innovatively structured. Be it in livestock, agricultural products, financials, futures, options, swaps, energy, petroleum, rare earth minerals. These are opportunities for investors to make money. So if a firm like Stellar Company in New York is adequately positioned, whatever the challenges are here, we'll be able to match them.
All right. Now, we have less than 10 minutes to finish this final because so the Q&A, I'll take like 3 questions. We have